If you do not have access to AI technologies, you're not going to be as healthy, you're not going to be as competitive, and you're not going to be as relevant. So your wealth, your health, and your overall relevance is a function of how well you use these set of technologies.
This is what Vala Afshar, Chief Digital Evangelist of Salesforce, is saying. Dear listeners, in this episode, Älyradio will make its debut in English. During this millennium, we have lived through an unseen change. Whole societies have been shaped by the fourth industrial revolution, climate crisis, and digital transformation. COVID-19 has only accelerated the pace of change. Today, with Vala, we aim to find the secret source of success and adaptation in these unpredictable times. Welcome to Älyradio, Vala Afshar.
Sami, it's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful to have you as a guest. And warmest greetings from Helsinki.
Thank you so much. I'm here from Boston, Massachusetts, and looking forward to our conversation.
I am fairly certain that there is one question burning in the minds of our listeners. Your title. Tell us, how does a Chief Digital Evangelist spend his days?
I get that question often. Let me give you a little bit of history behind the evangelist title. My company and I became a Salesforce customer in 2003. 17 years ago, when the company was small, a few hundred employees, and I was asked to bring a CRM solution to help manage our global customer service and support and sales lines of business. So at the time, I served as vice president of engineering and responsible for services for about a $400 million company, 400 million US dollar annual revenue company. And, for 12 years, from 2003 to 2015, I was a Salesforce customer. And at that time, my company grew 3 times in size, almost 3 times in employees. And I ended up writing a book about our success and how much of it was due to Salesforce. We had put CRM at the center of gravity of our business because we were obsessed about learning as much as we could about our customers. So when I wrote the book did well, and there was several US media publications that wanted me to write articles expanding on the book about culture, leadership, talent, technology. So I started writing articles, which led to starting a podcast in 2013. I've been with Salesforce 5 years. So 5 years ago, I spoke with then the president of products at Salesforce. Mm-hmm. And he said, your company is a Salesforce trailblazer company. You continue to write about innovation and technology, and you share stories on social media, on articles, books, podcasts. Would you like the opportunity to come and share stories as a member of Salesforce? And so an amazing opportunity. And, I'm a member of the engineering organization, so that's where I sit in the organization. And my daily activity includes research. So I work with the builders at Salesforce, the incredible engineers that build our solutions. I engage with our customers and our partners. This is a universal truth. No matter how big and successful your company, there's always more smart people on the outside than on the inside of your business. So part of my research and learning is connecting with customers and partners and our amazing community of trailblazers. And that engagement leads to, I write multiple articles a week for a US major publication called ZDNet. I continue to have a weekly podcast where I invite 3 trailblazers to share their stories. And I, deliver talks and keynotes around the globe. Now, of course, virtually, but before March of this year, I would spend probably 40% of my time traveling around the globe, talking to our customers and partners and at conferences and events. So it's research, it's content creation, it's speaking and learning. And, that's what I'm trying to do as a storyteller, as an evangelist.
We are electrical engineers both.
Yes.
You have studied engineering in the 90s at the University of Massachusetts. What has been the most fascinating development of change during your career?
Oh, what a wonderful, you're taking me back to so many years. I'll tell you, my last class was in graduate school, so post-bachelor, master's courses. And I couldn't Google for answers because there was no Google in 1997. That was my last class. Google was invented in 1998. At the same time, when I was an undergrad, there was no web. The web was introduced by CERN Particle Physics Laboratory in 1993, and that was towards the end of my undergraduate studies. So didn't have a web browser, didn't have, the cloud companies including Salesforce, which was, founded in 1999, as you know. So, when I think about access to information was quite different at that time. And, communication was one-to-one or one-to-many. And the one-to-many was usually established news sources. So there was a voice of authority and there was filtering of content. It was until Facebook in 2004 and Twitter in 2006 and this democratization of information and communication where we had now one-to-many, but you didn't have to be an authority. You and I have our blogs, our books, our social activities, and we're fortunate enough to connect to a large audience. So the phenomena of cloud computing, which was in the early 2000s, the phenomena of social networking, which actually really took off after 2010, and now it's the number one use of digital engagement. 1 in every 5 minutes on the web is on a social network. So we spend 20% of the time. So cloud, social, and of course I would argue that the phenomena of bring your own device at work, that revolution started with the iPhone in 2007. Yesterday was, Nokia's 20th anniversary for the Nokia 3000, which was an incredibly popular phone. But the internet connectivity and the app store and the real consumerization of technology and IT really took off in 2007 with the iPhone. So the combination of mobile, social, and cloud was a decade after my electrical engineering studies.
Yeah.
And so the world dramatically changed. And the value of companies really was predicated by these new technologies. If you looked at the market capitalization, which is the market value of companies 10 years ago, just 10 years ago, there was only one tech company in the top 10. Today, 7 of the 10 most valuable companies in the world are tech companies. And most of them, I would argue, are software companies, meaning their majority of their revenue comes from software. And their future growth is software-based. And my prediction is, if you ask my son, who's 10 years old, 10 years from now, when he's in college, I would argue 20 of the top most valuable companies will all be technology companies, and most likely all software companies. So, massive transformation, the age of the internet, really, since my last graduate electrical engineering class. By the way, Sam, thank you for making me feel old.
We are definitely not old, but it's fascinating how things have evolved.
Absolutely.
And now you put it to the perspective how much has changed over these 1 decade, actually, or 2 decades. Is there any particular development area or change that you are following kind of close at the moment?
There's
like AI, machine learning, something like that.
You read my mind. Certainly artificial intelligence. So I just mentioned the web. The internet. The first 4 nodes was in 1969, Stanford, UCLA. And so you're looking at in 50 years, the age of the internet, and it was Tim Berners-Lee that provided the web in 1993 with free licensing for everyone. Amazon was born a year later in 94, Google 98, Alibaba 99, Salesforce 99. So some of the biggest companies in the world right now, in terms of value, were born right after the internet. And of course, we talked about smartphone revolution and social revolution. I believe, and all of these had seismic impact on business. I believe we're at the beginning of truly understanding that perhaps impact to business and society, even more so than the internet and the web and social mobile cloud, is artificial intelligence. My belief is that it's electricity for business, meaning if you ignore and avoid building products and services and customer experiences based on AI. And AI is an umbrella category of multiple disciplines, 13 or 14 disciplines: machine learning, deep learning, natural language processing, smart robotics, computer visioning, so on and so forth. So there's a number of disciplines under this umbrella we call AI, and machine learning has had the most significant progress and impact in the last 5 years. In fact, at Salesforce, I don't believe we will release any new features across any of our clouds that's not powered by Einstein AI, which is a combination of some of these sciences that I mentioned. So we have invested both organically. I think there's north of 600 data scientists that work across multiple applications. We've also acquired incredible companies to help turbocharge our AI capabilities. So in fact, our belief last year at Davos, World Economic Forum, we as a company clearly stated that AI must be a human right, because the impact of it is so significant that if you do not have access to AI technologies, you're not going to be as healthy, you're not going to be as competitive, and you're not going to be as relevant. So your wealth, your health, and your overall relevance is a function of how well you use these set of technologies. And and the reason, the underpinning with this incredible bullish comments I'm making in terms of AI is due to the fact that speed to value is what matters most to society, our consumers and business buyers.
This summer's development in GPT-3 by OpenAI was just impressive. It's something that I have been watching a little bit, learning that what does it really mean, but it's amazing what that GPT-3 is able to do. Any thoughts about it?
If you're a journalist, if you're in the world of content creation, you have to wonder, with machines and human coexisting in the very near future, the narrative for your podcast and mine might be developed by an algorithm.
Exactly.
And the summary of what we say and do.
But it goes to the legal, it goes to the code writing and anything what requires kind of cognitive skills. It's amazing.
It is amazing, which you bring up a very important point, and this is something that's going to challenge every business, every industry of all sizes. Ethical use of AI, ethical use of these emerging technologies. Now, Salesforce is a pioneer in this space. A few years ago, we hired a chief ethical and humane use of software officer, Paula Goldman, who's a senior executive in our company, and she has a team of individuals that understand law, understand societal, principles and guiding principles that makes us very early in the design phase of our products. We question each other in terms of, should we build this capability? Is this going to harm, or is it going to help society and our stakeholders?
Yeah.
And we're also aware of the cognitive biases that exist. There are hundreds of biases, and this is why we also have a chief equality officer, because your algorithms are just your beliefs turned into code. So if you have a room full of same age, same ethnic, same skin color, same background individuals building algorithms, you're going to introduce massive biases into how you automate and how you build products and services. So the combination of championing equality and recognizing diversity is a must in order to successfully develop algorithms and automation. And at the same time, always looking at the ethical impact. Combination of equality and ethical use is going to be the most significant elements of whether your company's brand is accepted and welcomed and trusted by society as a whole. And the last thing I would say, this is all about trust. So when you see these algorithms, especially when you look at some of these neural networks that are 30, 40 layered, deep layered neural networks, where sometimes it's difficult to understand the predictions and recommendations, because the decisions that are being made are decisions based on 3,000, 4,000 parameters concurrently, something that a human being cannot do.
Exactly.
So for us to try to reverse engineer and try to understand how an algorithm can make a recommendation, and you're going to see this in autonomous vehicles, you're going to see this across many applications, it's going to be a challenge for us to try to understand the advanced capabilities of these algorithms. And so trust has to be your number one core value, and that is the number one core value at Salesforce, because we recognize that you can build a better product and lose to a competitor who's trusted more, who has an inferior product. Yeah. So this isn't about building the best product and service and experience. If you don't have trust of your stakeholders, you will lose to competitors that have inferior products, inferior services, but they've gained the trust of their stakeholders. So what you mentioned very briefly, ethical use, equality, and trust, those things go hand in hand. And it's not just AI, it's Internet of Things, it's quantum computing, it's additive manufacturing with 3D, it's immersive technologies with augmented and virtual reality. It's a lot of these combination of emerging technologies that's going to create this magical experience we're going to see delivered to our consumers and business buyers. It's just an amazing time, Sami, to be a technologist.
In your keynote in Salesforce Live in Helsinki, you addressed the post-pandemic world, and this spring the whole world has faced an unprecedented perfect storm that has changed everything. What do you think, what is the most important lesson the businesses have learned from this pandemic?
So in the absence of testing, automated contact tracing, and a vaccine, which is not likely to be here until next year, we may be in this situation, not everywhere in the globe, but certainly I believe in the US for the next 18 months to 3+ years. So I'm talking 2024. And of course, we don't even know, the different mutations of the virus. We don't know the flu season, the winter months, whether there may be a second wave. We're still dealing with the first wave globally. And countries like India, Brazil, US, there are many countries that are still struggling to contain. So to answer your question, in terms of the uncertainty part, our scenario planning says that we're in the stabilization, reopen, and growth phase. And I believe we will, depending on where you are in the world, will be in that reopening phase for some time to come. And so the first business lesson is every business needs to be digital. It's survival. You don't debate anymore whether e-commerce is important. You don't debate anymore if contactless payments. You don't debate if marketing automation and customer service using chatbots, given the volume of contact that's coming into your business. So it doesn't mean you have to change your plan. In fact, most Trailblazer customers of Salesforce had robust plans. What it means is you have to accelerate your execution. You can't wait for weeks and months and years before you have some fundamental capabilities that allow you to connect to your stakeholders on an omni-channel. You have to go where the customers are willing to go and engage with you. So that's the first lesson, is every business needs to be a digital business. Second lesson for some of us who are fortunate is work is not a place. You should be able to work anywhere and everywhere. So for those of us who are, if you're in sales, you're in marketing, you're in customer service, you're in commerce, even IT, HR, you should be able to work from anywhere. And Salesforce, as you know, we're building technologies and continue to deliver technologies so our customers and partners and our employees, our 54,000 employees, don't have to have physical dependency to work. For those of us who do not have physical dependencies, we now have a lesson learned from pandemic that work from anywhere is a must capability. And that realization, Sami, is because I think the biggest blind spot that businesses had was that they didn't recognize the power of decentralization. They didn't realize that a strong business shouldn't force stakeholders to come to a center physical place to get jobs done. So because we didn't really understand the power of decentralization, the world from March of this year went completely decentralized, completely digital, with the exception of essential workers, like, for example, healthcare providers and groceries and food. The rest of, 90% of the world went decentralized and digital. So, and that's what harmed many businesses, including small businesses. There's a belief in terms of research that 50% of small businesses that closed due to the pandemic may not open again, ever.
How severe the economic impact would have been without the current technological capabilities at hand?
Oh, wow. That's a you started the question about, us studying electrical engineering, in the 80s and 90s. Can you imagine a world without information flow like today's internet, where, the information moves almost at the speed of light? Now, obviously you have to have a proper vetting of the sources. Unfortunately, there's lots of misinformation as well. But, if you read and research and build a strong, honest community, you can be as informed as any entity in the world. Certainly, McKinsey just published, there was 10 years adoption of e-commerce in the US just in the last 3 months. So we're looking at adoption of technology accelerated by a decade just in a few months. That wouldn't be available in the absence of these technologies. So imagine when citizens of Finland and US would have heard about a virus in Wuhan, China in the 80s and 90s, in the absence of the internet and social networks and mobile networks where, everybody has a computer in their pocket. So how long would it take 20 years ago before we would have known that there was a dangerous virus in a city that many of us may have never even heard of in China? And then 20 years ago, we didn't have knowledge about viruses because, it was early research for AIDS, early research for Ebola. So we probably didn't have understanding of, airborne effect of dangerous viruses, or that you could be asymptomatic. You didn't have to have a fever or a cough, but you could be shedding the virus. I don't believe we would have had that knowledge when you and I were studying electrical engineering.
I've always been fascinated by growth and how to achieve it. I have also written a book about it together with Jan Ropponen. Name of the book is Revenue Growth Platform, and it's available in Amazon as well as Audible. In the book, we have case studies. We try to figure out what are the best B2B companies doing differently to achieve growth. So what is your view on this? What are the characteristics of fast-growing B2B companies?
Fundamentally, as a practitioner and now as a researcher, I believe that your core values shape and position you for relevance and growth. At our company, we debate every year what the core values must be. And we debate at the highest level to single contributor. The entire company is part of this process. It's not just the process of core values, it's how we manage our talent and ensure alignment. Of all the amazing things that Salesforce has done, in my opinion, the most important factor for our growth and success is a process we call V2MOM. It's vision, values, methods, obstacles, and measurements. It's typically a simple 1 or 2 page, as an individual, one page, 2 page assessment of what are your vision, what are your values, what methods are going to use to align your work to the vision and values, what are the obstacles that are going to prevent you to be successful, and then how are you going to measure success? Well, how do you know if you're successful? And what's amazing with Salesforce is that every one of us has a V2MOM. So we have 54,000. Every full-time employee has a V2MOM, from our founders all the way to a new hire that's been with the company 90 days. I think in the first 90, you have 90 days to create your V2MOM. But on our phone, on our tablet, on our laptop, on any connected device, we can look at any one of our colleagues' V2MOM, which is unbelievable radical transparency. I've never seen that in any company.
Especially in Finland, a large part of our companies operate in quite a capital-intensive businesses, mainly B2B businesses such as machinery. And you mentioned this B2B and B2C line blurring and then new business models. What is your take on the kind of traditional world going and transforming to the new world where the consumers or businesses are connecting themselves to the value that the vendor can provide? Is there a kind of movement to that side?
Absolutely. My last ZDNet article, I talked about the shock to brand loyalty because consumers and business buyers are looking for value and looking for availability. Certainly, the pandemic was massively disruptive to our supply chain industry. Mm-hmm. It accelerated additive manufacturing and the ability to 3D print components that can be 3D printed. So many of the number 2 reason for changing brands was lack of availability. So if you needed something and a brand couldn't provide it to you, you went and looked for an alternative solution. And as long as it was available, it didn't matter pre-existing relationship and propensity to buy and the affinity you had for the brand, you simply switched. So, part of the growth equation, going back to your previous question, is recognizing that growth is a function of business excellence, both back office and front office. If you were not able to source product, you lost relevance and you lost trust. And so that brand affinity went away and it may not come back. Many of these businesses, small, medium, or large, who are impacted. Look at the retail industry. I mean, again, I don't know the retail segment in Finland, but in the US, some of the largest, most revered brands, we had a retail company called Lord & Taylor. It was a 194-year-old company that just announced last week they're closing all their stores. A 200-year-old, at one time one of the largest retailers in the US, is closing. And there's over 24 large, we're talking multi-hundred billion revenue retailers that have declared bankruptcy in the last 4 months.
Indeed.
So it is designing for decentralization. It is appreciation of new business models. It's really understanding your customers and your ability to build that anticipatory muscle. You need to be able to anticipate your customers' needs. And I have to tell you, it's a shift in mindset. Forever you and I have heard, put the customer at the center of your business. We need to put customers at the center. I'll tell you, in my 20 plus years of work, I've never had a customer come to me and say, could you please put my company at the center of Salesforce? No one's ever said that to me. The right mindset is for us, the company, to put ourselves at the edge of our customers' business so we can see how our customers engage with their customers. When you're at the edge of your customer's business, that's when you see opportunities for innovation.
Vala, it's been truly an inspirational discussion. We have covered topics of trust. Every business needs to be digital, decentralization and design to movement, customers at the center of everything, innovation, AI, machine learning, virtual reality, and disruption. You know that now it is time for the question we ask from all of our quests. What do you think is the most intelligent thing at the moment? It can be anything, an idea, service, book, anything. You name it.
Sami, you have such deep questions. It's it's amazing. I think, and I'll just respond in describing you. I think the most intelligent thing about what is happening around us is people recognizing that staying teachable is the most important skill in the fourth industrial revolution. Or the World Economic Forum talks about the blending of the physical and digital world using these emerging technologies we've been talking about on the podcast. And so the pace of change is unlike anything we've ever seen in human history. And so to stay teachable is the most important skill and the most intelligent thing you can do for your own career, for your organization, for your company, and for your stakeholders. So it's not about reading any one book.
Yeah.
It's not about listening to any one podcast. It's not about working for any one successful company. It's all of it. It's all of it. And the best teachers are lifelong students.
Vala Afshar, thank you so much for this interview. It was wonderful to have you here.
It's my pleasure to talk with you. Every time you and I connect, I expand my thinking, and I appreciate you as a teacher, a colleague, and a friend.
Oh, thank you so much for your kind words. And next up is Elli Pennanen and Voices of the Ecosystem.
Hello, Juho. Can you tell us shortly who you are and where do you work?
Sure thing. So my name is Juho Kilkku, and I am an admin at heart. I started over 10 years ago with Salesforce Technologies as an administrator. I've been a product owner, a consultant, a teacher, and a user group leader throughout that time. And currently I'm working at Fluida, and there I'm responsible for our internal Salesforce, so I'm the head administrator there. And then when I'm not doing the administrative work, then I'm also a certified instructor, so I teach the admin and the advanced admin course.
If we think about the ecosystem and also your many roles, tell us what have you learned lately or would like to learn?
Well, the ecosystem is so large and wide that no single person can be an expert anymore. So it's great that, in my work, because, recently we've, for example, started using the Salesforce communities for our own intranet. And it wasn't a product that I had a lot of experience with, but it was great that I could reach out to other people in my company who have that specific knowledge. So for me, even though I have been working with Salesforce Technologies for 10 years, I only, I've mostly worked with Sales Cloud and Service Cloud, and I have a very deep understanding of those. But whenever we go to Marketing Cloud and some AMP script things, then I'm just like looking at it like, okay, what? So it is very fascinating to keep on learning more things about these sides of the whole Salesforce ecosystem that I just haven't really encountered in my work or in my customer projects previously.
So our last question, what is smartest right now? It can be anything, a book, an idea, or even an app.
Smartest thing right now. I do keep on coming back to the world's transition to renewable energy. It is a total shift in how we're going to be, producing and consuming energy. Mainly, it is driven by the declining costs of solar and battery storage that actually enables us to use this renewable energy as a viable solution in almost any kind of setting. Transport is a good example. Electric cars are becoming a viable solution, and as the costs are constantly declining, it will eventually become it's not going to be a viable option. It's going to be the superior option.
Thank you, Juho Kilkku.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening Älyradio and our special episode with Vala Afshar. Please give feedback or rate us in your podcast application or in Twitter with #Älyradio. For our Finnish listeners, you can find further information about our topics in our blog from salesforce.com/suomiblogging. Bye bye, and until next time.